This is the distinguished gentlelady from New York, Ms. Clark.
The gentlewoman from New York is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to support H.Res. 24, the article of impeachment against Donald Trump for high crimes and misdemeanors for a second time. Let us be very clear. What took place on January 6, 2021 was an act of domestic terrorism by right-wing, sycophantic white supremacists promoted, instigated, and advanced by the man in the White House, Donald Trump. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, the ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it sets to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it.
Time has expired. The gentleman from New York wishes.
Well, it's an unfortunate day, Lou. You can't get past the fact that the Democrats have been obsessed with removing President Trump from office. 19 minutes, Lou, 19 minutes into his administration on January 20th, 2017, 19 minutes after he takes the oath of office, the Washington Post headline said, campaign to begin the push to impeach the president has started. So they've been after it ever since. Then we had the Mueller investigation, the whole Russia investigation. Then we had impeachment round one, which was based on the anonymous whistleblower with no firsthand knowledge who was biased against the president and who worked for Joe Biden. And now here we are, 1 week before President Trump is going to leave office, and they are trying it again. So I don't know of any other word to say than it's been an obsession for the Democrats to go after President Trump. We should be focused on bringing the nation together. Instead, Democrats are going to impeach the president for a second time 1 week before he leaves office. Why? Why? Politics and the fact that they want to cancel the president. The president who cut taxes, the president who reduced regulations, the president prior to COVID had the greatest economy, lowest unemployment in 50 years, the president who got us out of the Iran deal, put the embassy in Jerusalem, brought hostages home from North Korea, put 3 great justices on the Supreme Court, gave us a new NAFTA agreement, the Abraham Accords, the COVID vaccine, and who built the wall. It's about politics. This is about getting the President of the United States. They spied on his campaign before he was elected. 19 minutes into his presidency, they started the impeachment push. 3-year Mueller investigation, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, 500 witnesses, 2,500 subpoenas, $40 million to find nothing. Impeachment based on an anonymous whistleblower with no firsthand knowledge who was biased against the president and who worked for Joe Biden. And now it's impeachment round 2.
And the minority leader of the House saying that the president is responsible. He didn't qualify it, bears some part responsible for what act? Again, quoting nothing from his speech. What in the world is Congressman McCarthy thinking?
Representatives. And they elected Liz Cheney, the daughter of the Vice President of the United States. The former whip of this House, Dick Cheney, with whom I served in the 80s. Representative Cheney from Wyoming, a conservative Republican, said this: the President of the United States summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack.
We see an unprecedented cooperation between big tech, big media, big corporations to silence those of us who believe in the America First agenda. Sean, I totally agree with you. If we're going to fight back, it cannot be with Liz Cheney as the Republican conference chair. I can report to you that there is growing momentum in the House Republican Conference to remove her. 197 Republicans voted against this impeachment. Only 10 voted for it. One of those 10 cannot be our leader. It is untenable, unsustainable, and we need to make a leadership change.
Liz Cheney made a unilateral decision to support this impeachment without consulting the conference, and it was a large mistake. She presented that argument in such a fashion that the Democrats were able to use her own words all day long to go ahead and pursue this impeachment of the president. She ignored the intent of the rules of our conference, and she weakened the conference at a critical time when we are facing a lot of challenges. And it was only to pursue personal political gain. And because of those reasons, I do not feel that she is eligible to be representing us as the third most powerful Republican in the conference.
Live from the nation's capital, you're in the War Room, Thursday, the 14th of January, the year of our Lord 2021. Now with almost 28 million downloads on our podcast, the top one or two podcast in the nation, a political podcast, John Frederick's Radio Network, Real America's Voice, the streaming service, plus their Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113. In every distribution platform, want to tell everybody today, download, go to use your text message, War Room, that's one word, War Room, 2-888-111, and you download the Real America's Voice app. If you want to get in the live chat, and one of the things we're doing here is building a community on YouTube. It was massive. America's Voice, one word, .news. America's Voice .news. Get in the live chat right now. We got Jack, Maxey, and the team that are setting it up. Go to War Room Pandemic. Hashtag War Room Pandemic. Of course, every other site. We're at Gab, Minds.com, podcast platforms everywhere. So we've got Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller, Jack Maxey's now returned from assignment. And I want to turn to, first off, let's go to where do we stand today after we had the bomb of, a 3-hour impeachment? Had a 3-hour impeachment. Jason, let's start with you. We'll go around the horn to Raheem. It's, and it's been used as the most bipartisan impeachment in the nation's history because of Liz Cheney. And people should understand, it wasn't simply just Grundoon Democrats come out saying. It was Steny Hoyer's whole speech, and he's the leader. It built the speech around her quotes about the mob, calling the deplorables and calling of the million people that were there, or 500,000. I don't know. Sam Faddis told me it's the biggest crowd he's ever seen in Washington ever, including for inaugurations. This massive crowd. They have 52 arrests or 100 arrests. They're chasing a couple of hundred other guys, but a couple of hundred versus 500,000 to a million people sitting there in the cold listening to the speech, and she refers to it as a mob. So where do we stand? Before we get to her, and before we get to the 10 Republicans who decided in their idea of voting their conscience and profiling courage to vote with the Democrats, including a young man that's been here a couple of weeks, right? They were pretty shocking. Where do you think we stand this morning with all of this?
Yeah, Stephen, Raheem, and Jack, good to see you guys again. Cameron, working the board over there as well. So yesterday, obviously, we saw the vote in the House where they voted to impeach President Trump for the second time. The current schedule is that the earliest it could get brought up, per McConnell, would be the 19th. That'd be next Tuesday, the day before Biden's inauguration. It's not going to happen then. Realistically, where it's going to start is on the 21st. I expect that is when they're going to dive into it. And I think, look, Jim Clyburn, number 3 ranking Democrat on the House side, said this morning on NPR they don't have the votes. And the fact that they only got 10 Republicans, Steve, I was with the president for a while yesterday afternoon. I was actually in the back of the Oval Office as he was giving that speech. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I just marveled at how he could do it in one take while the rest of us jabronis would have to, do it and have it edited and all this kind of stuff. And afterwards, I asked the president, was like, okay, so give me the gut check. What do you think about this? And he goes, 10? He's like, I thought there were reports that there were 20, 30, 40. Yeah. The fake newsers were saying this was going to be some kind of jailbreak. And he's like, and the only one that anybody even knows, first of all, the president didn't know who half of these people were. Right. But he goes, Liz Cheney. He's like, what's the deal there? It's like, there's Liz Cheney, there's the guy who's auditioning for CNN and MSNBC, and there are 8 other Lilliputians. That's it. And so that's why, there is, I think the message that we delivered, Steve, and War Room Nation, I think really picked up the fact that 80% of Trump supporters are saying that they won't support anyone who votes for impeachment, 76% of Republicans overall. That's a pretty clear shot.
The John McLaughlin polling was strong, and I want to compliment the audience. You guys lit up the boards, emails, phone calls. We heard that the War Room posse was there saying, hey, you got to back the president. I want to go back to Clyburn. Clyburn is the guy that pitched, because I think he's being strategic here. He's the guy, you remember, pitched, I want to do this at the end of the 100 days. I don't want to jam up Biden's. We want to hit the thing. We want to get rid of all of Trump's executive orders. We want to get rid of everything. We want to start the hot running, and let's do this at the end of the 100 days. I think he's actually saying that to slow Schumer and these guys down, saying you don't have it yet. You're going to have to work this time. Let's talk about what McConnell can do. There's no actual reason, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, there's no reason that this should go to Chuck Schumer. The last thing, the Trump movement, the party base, the Republican Party across the board, the two things they don't want is a Republican Senate taking this to trial and trying to have guys sign up for actually removal from office, because the Republican Party would vaporize overnight. The second thing I don't think you want to do is pass this to crying Chuck Schumer, who's had a vendetta against Trump from the very beginning, and particularly in the shock win of 2016, right? So I don't know why they haven't filed a motion to dismiss, right? Wouldn't this be a logical thing? That's the thing you can go right now, and the tactics of, hey, on the 19th, and kind of jam up McConnell and the guys and say, let's have a vote. It's a motion to dismiss, majority vote. I know you.
Jack is back.
I know,
he's back, baby.
I know you. It's another assignment here. So I know what you're. I know you're going to say. McConnell's part of the plot here.
So a couple of things on this. And by the way, I do want to point out, before I lose this train of thought, that as folks are reading the news this morning, or seeing what the takeaway is, it's basically a fait accompli. Like this was a stunning rebuke of President Trump in his final days. The stories are not going to, and now he's DOA or in real trouble in the Senate. It's basically, this was the stunning rebuke, only president to ever be impeached twice, because even the press corps, even the fake newsers know that this isn't going anywhere in the Senate, that the disconnect between the haters in Washington, D.C. and the supporters out in the rest of the country isn't there. So
where do you mean it's not going anywhere in the Senate?
Because they don't have the votes to convict President Trump in a trial. And so that
you don't think Schumer? But you're assuming Clyburn's being straight. I'm saying Clyburn's being strategic.
I think Clyburn says the quiet part out loud. Look, Jim Clyburn, obviously I see different politically, but he kind of
I think he's a smart guy.
But he has a little bit of the truth serum going. Like, he doesn't spin. He just says what he's thinking or what he honestly, and I respect that about him.
Yeah.
The guy, he only has one pitch.
Right.
That's like 90 mile an hour right down the middle of the plate.
Right.
But here's the thing. I think that McConnell doesn't want to have this impeachment happen on his watch. I think he would ideally let Schumer do it. I will say this, and I'm going to say again, you can come at it from two different perspectives and agree on this. I want to see it dismissed as quick as possible. It's not going anywhere. Let's get it over. Let's remove this, especially because I don't want to give Chuck Schumer the opportunity to go and try to cause problems. However, if this comes up then on the 21st, and this is where I think kind of all interests could align, we're going to make Joe Biden own this. Let's put aside Nancy Pelosi. Let's put aside crying Chuck.
That's Clyburn.
We're going to pull Joe Biden, into this, and that's what said Jim Clyburn.
Yeah.
Is making this point. We're going to go and make Joe Biden own this, and that is, I think that is smart.
Joe Biden wouldn't be there getting inaugurated on the 20th if it was not for Clyburn. Clyburn's the godfather of this operation. That's why I think he's being strategic. He's saying we don't have the votes, let's get this thing out of here. Or just wait for 100 days and work it and see if you've got it. So, okay, we're going to be back in a second with the word more about the impeachment, the Senate trial, and of course, our new favorite, Liz Cheney. Be back in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're back. The propaganda they're using all day, all night, that this is the most bipartisan impeachment ever. How critical is it that the 10 actually showed up, voted, led by leadership, Liz Cheney? And McCarthy didn't whip this. McCarthy didn't put the strong arm of guys to say, hey, strategically, symbolically, this is not going to look good, right? So where do we stand with all of leadership? McCarthy sat there, and I tell you, at first they leaked it that the president had said he had partial responsibility on a call, which was au contraire, just not true, right? I mean, you know that, the people around him know that, and it's obvious from the facts. But then he said in his speech yesterday, the president has responsibility for this. So where do you think we stand with this 10, and how big a breach is that in the Republican Party? You would never see the Democrats do that, ever.
Yeah, but you know what? For all the media reports saying, like I said before, it's going to be 20, 30, 40 different Republicans leaving. The fact that it was only 10, and let's just take a moment and go through it. Again, there's Liz Cheney, the guy trying out for CNN, and then 8 randoms that nobody's ever heard of. So Liz Cheney, of course, the daughter of former vice president, who is number 3 ranking Republican in the House, is in a state that President Trump won by 40 points. Okay, so a massive margin here. As we know from our battleground polling, and again, the battleground states, you go to Wyoming where it's even stronger, 80% of Trump voters will be less likely to support someone who voted for impeachment. 76% of all Republicans. So there's not some big gap between the Trump loyalists and Republicans. They're going to hold it against you. I think Liz Cheney she must not be planning on running for re-election again. I don't know if the Kochs took her and tied her up downstairs in the basement, swapped in a new Forever War memory chip, and then said, hey, get back out there and go and try to vote to impeach him. This is not someone who plans on running for re-election again, because I will tell you that the voters are going to hold all 10 of these folks accountable. Now, let's just go through the other names just real quick. Well, in fact, actually,
the one that surprised me the most was Gonzalez.
Yeah,
Gonzalez has been anti-CCP, done a good job on China. From Ohio, which the president's.
There's one stunning point that I'll make about Liz Cheney.
Yep.
And that's that now there's Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz and the True Believers are leading an effort to try to get her removed from that Republican conference post, which, Steve, you made the great point as we're just getting ready to open up the show. Why is she still in that job today?
Why?
I would hold a conference meeting this morning. It does take 2/3 of a vote. That would boot her out. They should do that immediately. She does not. You cannot have her in that position any longer. Here's the ironic thing about all of this. There's a greater likelihood that she's going to get kicked out of her job this week than President Trump. So
you think it's a higher probability she gets booted from leadership than President Trump gets found guilty at a trial?
Correct.
Okay.
And the other thing, look, when we talk about some of the other names, Adam Kinzinger from Illinois,
he's a Democrat.
He's a complete jabroni, right? And he's just trying out for his news job. They might redistrict him out of a position. John Katko from New York, Fred Upton, who,
there are a couple of guys that had Biden won their districts, right? I'm not saying I agree with that, but I can understand I think Katko was one of those, and the woman from Washington, I believe.
And I would be surprised if either Butler from Washington or Newhouse from Washington even ran again.
Yeah.
The Pete Meyer guy from Michigan, that's the old what's the crazy guy, Amash?
Amash.
Right, that's his old district. He'll get bounced in a primary. Tom Rice from South Carolina it's weird. I mean, he's basically a guy. All he does is steal oxygen on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Like he's really he's worthless.
But he was also talking about, I think he was tweeting out and talking about some of the details of the states and the problems they had. This is what I don't understand.
Tom Rice?
I don't understand about Tom Rice is how do you go from a complete flip? You go from absolutely, a guy who was doing I think serious work and had his staff analyzing where the illegality and illegitimate activities were going on.
2 days ago, he says he's opposed to it. And he flips the wrong way. He's not coming back. He's playing. I don't know if he thinks the Chamber of Commerce will hire him to be like one of their low-level lobbyists. Then you got David Valadao from California. It was a bit of a surprise. But the one, Steve, you mentioned, Anthony Gonzalez.
A rising star.
Yeah, he's a sophomore. He's and by the way, all over President Trump's jock. This guy
This
could
is what
not,
I understand.
This guy
he is a
could
jock.
not-
He's a football player.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys that took up the anti-CCP, did a fantastic job, did the hard work to understand a lot of the issues. And no offense, he's all over Trump.
And the other thing, too, he used to call President Trump all the time, like, oh, can I please ride on Air Force One? And then he goes and does this. And so, look, I don't know what got to him or what made him do this, but I'll tell you, Pastor Darrell Scott, our good friend from Cleveland, he tweeted out this morning that he is so enraged by Anthony Gonzalez, he's like, I might have to go and primary the guy. But here's the thing.
But he was just on the show the other day, so
he's on fire.
He's on fire.
I will tell you this.
He's got the great show here on Real America's Voice on SmackDown with Pastor Darrell Scott on Saturday
Republican primary voters are going to ensure, and again, this is Republican primary voters, Trump supporters, will ensure that all 10 of these members have primary challenges unless they retire or move on to
the
something
primary
else.
challenges are important, and I think Liz Cheney is going to have one here very shortly, I anticipate. But the critical thing is leadership. If you're going to be in leadership, particularly, this is very tough times. You're going to have this civil war between obviously the Trump base and parts of establishment, but that's where you need leaders who really, and this is why I'm disappointed in McCarthy. Particularly McCarthy's been such a big supporter of the president. And let's be brutally frank, if Trump hadn't have put his shoulder to the wheel, McCarthy wouldn't have had this great results in the House. I mean, that was Trump really grinding down on these House races, right, which we did fantastic. Almost took back the House, which nobody anticipated.
So I want to say something on McCarthy real quick, just having been around both him and the president. Look, haven't always been the biggest fan of McCarthy. Going back into Trump world, spent a lot of time with him. He did a lot behind the scenes to help the president. I've sat in meetings with Kevin McCarthy and the president where they went through and making decisions about what races to get involved in and not get involved in. And I thought he gave the president really good counsel. And actually, and I will say that I became a Kevin McCarthy fan.
So, okay, I agree. Let's say I agree with you on that. What happened?
President Trump is going to make sure we get the House back in 2022.
Yeah.
He's got a ton of money. He's the biggest name. He's going to get that done. All that being said, Kevin, it's like one of those.
It's bad form.
That it was the wrong time and the thing is, like, look, if you're going to pull a Liz Cheney, then do a Liz Cheney. He kind of got everyone on both sides mad at him a little bit. Exactly. For someone who's such a skilled, smart politician, someone who I generally have enjoyed working with, I thought it was a colossal misstep.
He gave him a 30-second spot. That 30-second spot is going to be, they're going to sit there and bombard it. He's going to take those quotes and you're going to see that in ads. Okay, I want to reset here for a second. Raheem, thoughts on what we've gone through in the last couple of days? Where do you think we are?
Well, I'm glad we have Jason here to walk through the Capitol Hill stuff and the political stuff. It's something that is not really on my radar. I don't follow the sort of caucus stuff intently. I'm not saying it's not important. It's just it's not in my wheelhouse. What I've been looking at in the last 24, 48 hours, as you know, is the wider narrative that's being spun about all of this and what the background of the impeachment actually was. Because here's the thing, and here's why it ties into exactly what you guys were talking about, is how can you trust members, how can you trust congressional leaders who so easily fall into the trap set for them by the media? Now, immediately after the events that took place last Wednesday, I said something doesn't stack up, something isn't right. And then, the Washington Post released this story at midnight almost on Sunday night, which means they really didn't want people to look that deeply into it. Typically you would publish another 5, 6, 7 stories before most people wake up 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning and start looking through the Washington Post website. But I caught it, and I caught the timeline buried deep within it. And I wanted to thank Mark Levin for reading out my story of the timeline for the first 10 minutes of his show yesterday. And what the timeline shows us, of course, and I'll repeat it again, is that it just simply wasn't possible for people who wanted to see the president and traveled for hundreds or thousands of miles to see the president, waited in the freezing cold 5 hours, 6 hours, to have then suddenly decided, oh, you know what, I'm actually just going to run 45 minutes down the street and trash a building. Now CNN, several days, I think we're 4 or 5 days now after this, is reporting, and it was actually just up on the screen behind you as well, Steve. They say evidence uncovered so far, including weapons and tactics seen on surveillance video, suggests a level of planning that has led investigators to believe the attack on the U.S. Capitol was not just a protest that spiraled out of control, a federal law enforcement official claims. That's stunning.
Repeat the last phrase of that. Was not a protest that spun out of control.
Led investigators to believe the attack on the U.S. Capitol was not just a protest that spiraled out of control.
Republicans and others, Jason, had to know this information was out there. Raheem's story did come out. Why was that not forced into the debate? The debate yesterday seemed to me almost content-free. There's a lot of things about bringing the country together and not bringing the country together. The country's not united. And we can't wish some happy talk to unite the country. There are deep differences between the vision of what the country is and where the country's going to go, in addition to how you govern that, right? You've seen the oligarchic model they're going to with big tech, big corporations, big media and now everybody that's going to a Trump rally is a domestic terrorist, right? They're going to that's all you hear all day long, right? White supremacists and domestic terrorists. So they're going there. When I know I had a couple of hours. Why didn't we try in more content like this that had to be known that President Trump had literally nothing. His rally was separate from what went on before, what was going on at the time he was speaking.
I think some of that came up during the speeches yesterday, but it was such a compressed rush job that they went through. I think this is all going to be laid out at the Senate trial, however long this is going to be. But the other thing I'd say, too, is Chad Wolf. What the hell? I mean, you're the acting DHS secretary. Where were you? And the guy says, that he resigned, and his people kind of say it was, in protest. No, I think it's because the guy did such a terrible job. 100%. I mean, thank goodness this wasn't something, even more bad. Because he's what a loser.
You know what they relied on this time? Like they didn't have last time. Last time they had war room impeachment against them. No, seriously, last time we had the stacks of documents, the papers, we had, congressional members and everyone listening to this show and understanding the details that we were going through on the show. We didn't have that.
Jason said when we started the show, the purpose of the show is to hold it all together. So you didn't have any defections. Yeah. We didn't have any defections, right? Only in trial with Romney.
But they rushed it through, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Short break. We'll return with the team in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we might be at a trial a week from tomorrow. I mean, Chuck Schumer could, if he thinks he's got the votes, could start this the morning that right after the new senators from Georgia are sworn in. So we're somewhere, if it's not Clyburn's 100 days, we're somewhere within a week, 10 days, 2 weeks of another trial in the Senate. This one will be much more dramatic because this is where they're going to go to really strip President Trump of any kind of political power in the future. And you did a great job on Maria Bartiromo this morning, Jason, talking about, which I don't think anybody's thought about, take away the presidential library, take away his Secret Service protection at a time when obviously with the Iran situation, the China situation in Pakistan, the president's got to be a high-value target. So you take away his Secret Service, take away his pension, take away his ability to get intel briefings so then he really can't interact with foreign leaders. This is to really unperson him as far as a former president goes, right? And most importantly, take away that immense political power, which is his ability to run again in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, they literally want to Control-Alt-Delete his entire presidency. They want to just have, it went from Obama to Biden. Was there someone else? They literally want to pretend. And how long? Actually, this is actually a serious point. I'm not saying this for hyperbole's sake. How long until the history books, if they weren't going to go and write up negative things about the president, they would go and just try to pretend like his presidency didn't exist.
Oh, exactly.
They hate him that
They're
badly.
trying to erase him like the Soviet Union. This is what I'm saying. This has happened in America before. It is why your story and the analysis going around your story now, and even CNN, remember, their second thing they're trying to do is that we're domestic terrorists. And this was a thought-through domestic terrorism thing with weapon caches all around. And by the way, only an investigation can prove that. And they got to get to that investigation and find out who these bad guys are. But for the trial, which we could be at in a week to 10 days, what your timeline brings up is how do we even get in this situation about inciting a violent insurrection, right?
I just want to make a final point on what Jason was saying as well, is they're not just doing it for all those reasons, but also they know how important Obama has been to them as a former president over the last 4 years, 5 years. So they know they don't want a Trump figure like that. Obama had the Kalorama HQ. Right. They don't want Trump operating a Mar-a-Lago Republican philosophical and political HQ, and this is what this is all targeted at. But let's get to your point, and I want to get around a few of these things. Hey, so how popular right now? What's the approval numbers of the U.S. Congress?
Oh, it's got to be 20%,
28 in the battleground states.
Jack Maxey?
I would say a little lower, probably like 21%.
15%.
15. Yep.
15%. What's the? How many Americans say that they trust the mass media a great deal?
It's got to be low single digits. 12%. 10.
I'm going to go slightly. I'll say 19.
20, 25.
9%. And what's the president? I'm using all Gallup polls, by the way. What's the president's approval rating per the last Gallup poll?
It's got to be 39%.
39%. Yep. Right. So just think about that. Just internalize
these are order of magnitude's difference, right?
Right. Think about what they're fighting and what they know they're fighting here. They know they're
And that's
fighting
what
not
after the
popular
worst
with them.
week of beatdown he's had with really no rebuttal, right, at 39. He's
Exactly.
probably in the mid-40s.
Exactly. And, people lie to pollsters because they don't want their names going down on a list as Trump supporters, given everything that's going on right now as well. So that's something to understand their motivations right now also. But I want to add one more thing to this conversation, is I do believe that what happened on January the 6th was domestic terrorism, but not MAGA people. And I am digging and finding out more information as days go by that this third element here, what do you want to call them, accelerationists, boogaloo types,
Explain
whatever.
what acceleration is, a term of art. We always give people nomenclature. What is accelerationist?
Look, unfortunately, there are people out there that believe that the only way to, re-secure the United States in the way that they think it was intended to be is to force a new civil war. And they're willing to take any side and do anything to make that happen. Now, whether you're a psychotic shaman and you think dancing around the halls of Congress is your way to do it, or whether you're another Democrat was arrested, by the way, registered Democrat arrested, by the way, for their roles in January the 6th.
The judge's son.
Yep. Whether you're that person, whether you're the BLM person who Rudy Giuliani spoke about yesterday on the show, and we've got masses and masses of evidence, not just of him being there, but him in a Trump hat. All the while, his web presence shows that he is an infiltrator and an agitator trying to discredit MAGA people. There are, unfortunately, these people, and they are still here in Washington, D.C. So if there's anybody listening to this from local law enforcement or the FBI, you can find them just outside the Heritage Foundation building between Heritage and Union Pub in a tent city with 15 tents in the middle.
But hang on for a second. And everybody jump in here. The information we now know from the FBI went to people and were talking to them about this before the 6th, right? They were interviewing people and even warning people not to come. We know that there were warnings inside DHS, FBI, all the intelligence apparatus. Starting Sunday, all of a sudden we had 7,500 troops. Now we have 20,000 troops that are coming into. It's like Lincoln in the Civil War. This is like the first inaugural address of Lincoln. And the place is totally fenced off. They shut down everything. Now, remember, we came down for the inauguration in 2016. It was really not well reported. That was also an armed camp. People don't remember how that was shut down and what happened to the Trump people, which I understand some footage is coming up there. But this all had to be known before the 6th. And why on the 6th, where you just had some bike racks and you had the noble Capitol Hill police, but everybody knows that they don't strike you as the Marines or Special Forces, right? It's the Capitol Hill police. And so now this is an armed camp. I think it was Jack, you told me that there are more troops in Washington, D.C., or there will be by tomorrow night.
No, there's actually double the number of troops right now protecting Nancy Pelosi and our elected officials from the public than there are troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. Twice as many in Washington, D.C. for Nancy Pelosi as there are for Iraq and Afghanistan combined.
Well, I mean, this is the thing about the peaceful demonstration on the 12th of November was so powerful because you had 500,000 to 1 million people. It was so peaceful, and I think that the establishment goes, oh, my gosh, this movement's got it all. It's got Trump, it wants change, and this is working class and middle class with their children, and they got righteous indignation, but they're peaceful. Clearly, the non-peaceful elements, and that's where I think you're going to find out there's some sort of revolutionary guard. The accelerationists don't want change to come about peacefully. They've made a decision, and they're both on the left and the right. They've made a decision that change can only come about through violence, right? And we know in the United States that's not the way it works, right? This is not maybe in third world countries, maybe in certain countries in Europe, but certainly not in the United States. And this is going to. And President Trump, I thought, was terrific in the video yesterday. I didn't like all aspects of it, but I think the thing was most powerful was saying, hey, you're playing into their hand, right? Peaceful movement. The more you play into the hand, the more you're going to have the nonstop media.
Can I make a point on the video? And I one of the questions I get from reporters all the time is on the issue of responsibility and asking about President Trump and responsibility regarding last week. And I think that President Trump had a responsibility to condemn the horrific attacks from last week, which he's now done multiple times. And again, it's a shame that Twitter and Facebook and Instagram won't even allow that video to get up there. I think he has a responsibility, which he did, to make sure his supporters are not out there participating in the nonsense going into next week's inauguration or even in the potential protests around the country. That's what his responsibility is, and he stepped up to that. And I think that one thing to keep in mind is the woke mobsters. There's no appeasing them.
I want to pull the Maria Bartiromo clip, Cameron, for later in the hour of the evening show. You were fantastic. The point you made on Maria Bartiromo is the point. As much as you don't like Trump or whatever you would think about him, he came out yesterday with a statement that talked about uniting the country through action. We got to be peaceful. We got to start listening to each other. Yesterday, juxtaposed, because he put up the end, juxtaposed to a hate-filled several hours of just, and they're sitting there going, the country's not united, and you see the highly partisan attacks, just attack. And in fact, Raheem, when they tried to get content in about what actually happened, they were heckled down or cut off. That's why it was content free. I think the juxtaposition of President Trump. And here's the other thing. President Trump, and guys might not like the first one they did in the Rose Garden, but the second one, what could the Democrats not like? They did a third one. They're still not satisfied. Like Rush Limbaugh said, you could do this over and over and over again, and they're never going to be satisfied. He comes out last night with that video, right? One take, as you said, from the heart. How many people can do that? No, and it's still not good enough for him, right? It comes out last night. I think the American people saw it. Obviously, his followers saw it. The Republicans saw it. I think we're very moved by it, right? But it's not enough.
It also helps there being one take when he says, "Hey, I think that was perfect. That was good."
Yeah,
so
you're not
there wasn't really an option for a second take, but that's.
I have a totally different take on the way this is all played out. I think that it's actually there's a silver lining in all of this, right? Because what we're seeing is that the Democrats are taking their masks off. They're showing their true hatred
clarity
for Donald Trump. Yeah. Describing him as crazy as a projection against his 80 million followers, describing them as crazy as well. The horrible things that happened last Wednesday at the Capitol, they were nothing like what happened in cities all across America this summer. Okay, there were some impassioned people, there were probably some bad people, etc. But this massive gaslighting that is going on across America to describe this as an insurrection equal to the Civil War. You had Congressman Liu up in New York City saying, "I've finally seen something more horrifying than 9/11. This is nonsense. The very idea that in this great constitutional democracy, we now have the Democrats impeaching the president in a period of hours with no committee hearing, no evidence, no nothing. They've already predetermined his guilt. I say let it play out. This is not harming the president. This is harming them. Harming them.
And the fact that Liz Cheney yesterday stood with Nancy Pelosi. The Adam Kinzinger yesterday stood with Feng Swalwell. That is going to be
clarity.
If you didn't get so Eric Swalwell caught up in this whole CCP. Okay, you guys know the story. So, but think about that. Their lasting legacy.
No, but the audience,
is
make sure they
standing with
understand. There's a whole thing with him having a tryst over a period of time with someone who turns out is a Chinese intelligence asset,
right?
And maybe an officer, right? And he's on the House Intelligence Committee.
They looked at him and said, "Thought bubble, the stupidest American in the entire country that could fall for this CCP spy is Eric Swalwell." And they found the dummy, and now he's on the House Intel Committee.
Raheem, I want to pull the CNN story up because, and Jack hit on something that's very important. And this is why I say, for everybody out there that's depressed, we're actually winning this. You're just going to have to grind through it, right? Here's why. They had a blazing story in CNN. Huge differences between the riot the other day and the BLM and Antifa thing. Huge difference. And you got to go down in the buried lead. When they get down to the difference, they say, oh, the difference is the riot here was based upon Trump's lies and not the reality of systematic racism and others that, I mean, that they assume the end, right, in the assumption. But that's how weak their argument is. This is why Jack's right. We have to continue to push through this. And that's why I'm telling you, people are not focused on it right now. We'd like to give you tomorrow's news today. This trial, I think, is going to be showtime. I think it's going to be a global event because Donald Trump's not going to back down. He's not going to back, and particularly for Mitch McConnell and you guys, if it gets in the hands of Chuck Schumer, and Chuck Schumer is going to try to play some games here, President Trump is going to throw down hard in this. Okay, let's take a short commercial break. We're going to return with the team in just a moment.
Just beginning for the games you want to play. Bring it on and I will fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. Cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Everyone gathered here in Washington today came to celebrate President Trump's inauguration. Protesters lined part of the parade route, and in some parts of the Capitol, there were confrontations with police.
The anger reaching a boiling point in the nation's capital after President Trump took the oath of office. Police in riot gear facing off against the protesters just 6 blocks from the inaugural parade. Unleashing pepper spray, concussion grenades, all to disperse the crowd.
Burning cars and smashed windows. A small group of protesters dressed in black, their faces covered, armed with hammers and bricks. Facing off with thousands of officers on site, many in riot gear, confronting them with flashbang grenades and pepper spray. Before the swearing-in ceremony even began, protesters tried to block checkpoint entrances. During President Trump's speech, several demonstrators were escorted out of the area. Several officers injured during the protest today, and more than 100 people arrested.
Tonight, thousands of protesters remain in downtown D.C., occasionally facing off with police. We have seen many people injured, both protesters and police officers.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the guys back at Denver for putting that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is January 20th of 2017. So don't believe any of this phony spin that the media is giving. We're going to run the sprockets off that thing. We're going to play it over and over and over again. This is what President Trump came into. The nullification project started, an hour after we won at 2:30 in the morning, 2:30 a.m. Eastern time in New York City. Right, went to the Hilton. It started right away. Had 10,000 protesters out in front of Trump Tower. It never stopped. And this is why we're going to get to it later in the second hour. President Trump, you got to declassify all of the Mueller stuff. It has to happen because it'll go through chapter and verse of what they try to do. Look at that right there. You don't see CNN. Compare that to the other day. I am not justifying what happened the other day. You can't justify it. And particularly when the bad actors come up that have no association with the Trump movement. As Raheem and these guys start to drill down on this, and that's the FBI put some information out there that this is not the MAGA movement, right, as President Trump said yesterday. But that was reality. This city was under siege. I said this thing was like an armed camp last year, but you don't hear about it. They've put that in the memory hole, Mr. Jason Miller.
Yeah, no, and again, it's the double standard. I mean, I'm reading all these reports about whether it be Barbara Boxer challenging the election results after 2004 because of the machines in Ohio, whether it be Jamie Raskin and all these Democrats who challenged the electors after 2016. And they're trying to, again, it's the Democrats' attempt to gaslight and rewrite history.
I want to get back to something that's very important to Henry audience just real quickly. It's what Jack Maxey said. It's what's in the reality of that video that we're going to play over and again. And it's Jason Miller and John McLaughlin doing the hard work of polling, getting to the bottom of this. The reality here is good. We just won a sweeping victory, and let's leave President Trump out of it. You know, and Peter Navarro's got part 3 of his report today that Liz Ure has already told me is stunning, okay? And by the way, they're going to love the headline, Trump wins, the evidence, the receipts, all of it, as only Navarro can do. So and we won sweeping victories in the House and the Senate, all of it, across the board, state legislature. The reality and the numbers and the math are good. The narrative can be good with the reality of what Jack said. We just have to get shoulder to shoulder and start to push what reality is and do the hard work that you and McLaughlin and others that I know woke up a lot of people in this town, Raheem.
I just think it's disgraceful that Trump supporters would have done that, on Inauguration Day in 2016.
Look at the flashbang grenades. I mean, it looks like it's Beirut, right?
But there's another perspective here. Let's remember, who were those people trashing Washington, D.C. last time? Maybe Nancy Pelosi and
Half of them
Joe
probably
Biden
work
have,
for Muriel Bowser. What
have
are you
decided
talking
that they're
about?
running the same risk, that they're going to have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders
First off,
supporters.
they had 1 million angry people here on the pink march the next day, right? Saturday, you couldn't even go around the city.
That's right. I covered it. I was there. I was out in public doing that. Did 3 hours of radio in the afternoon as well after going out there all morning. But when was there a curfew that night?
No, sir, there was not.
Were people forced off the streets?
No, sir, there was not.
Were there 20-foot metal barricades blocking Capitol
Hill? The only
Hill?
businesses were closed, the ones they burned out. Okay.
But quick question, Raheem. Earlier, just talking in the topic of crazy people, you mentioned a couple of these groups that I'd never heard of. So is it the Boogaloos?
The Boogaloo.
Is that like the Insane Clown Posse?
That's the Juggalo.
Yeah. No, but these names.
There are Juggalos and Boogaloos?
There are Juggalos. America is a diverse country.
These are accelerationist groups. Okay, this is serious. We are 10 days away or 12 days away from, I think, the most important trial the Senate's ever had. Because here, where they couldn't remove him from office, here they're going to try to remove him from any future involvement in politics and the leader of this movement. That's why, Raheem, the stuff you've been doing is going to be critically important. The stuff we're going to have next.
Just want to remind people.
We're bringing guys in from Georgia next.
Just want to remind people, here's why President Trump is going to be fine in this trial, but we have to hold folks' feet to the fire. Number one, 80% of Trump supporters will not go and vote for someone if they vote for impeachment, whether it be in the Congress or in the Senate. 76% of all Republicans will hold it against anyone who votes for impeachment. Here's the other thing. 74% of voters, when told that this trial wouldn't actually happen until President Trump has been out of office, they see it as being political and nothing more than a score settling that they're trying to do.
Look, the constitutionality of it's got to get sorted out first. One, we don't even know if we can do it. Number two, we don't even know if they can. They have to have a separate vote to remove from office. This is going to be highly contentious. We want to get you guys ahead of it because, hey, everybody's going to be thinking about the Biden transition. You've got probably one of the most important political events in the nation's history, and it ain't Joe Biden's inaugural address, okay? It is this trial that is going to be high stakes. And you're absolutely correct. This is going to be intense politically. You got guys like John Thune already said, and Mitch McConnell saying, hey, I think, I might vote for government.
And almost every single aspect of it violates the history of Western jurisprudence, right? There's no evidence. There's no declarations. There's no defense. They're guilty before they even get to the courtroom.
It's a Moscow show trial. We got to jump. Commercial break. Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, Steve Bannon will be back. Jason Miller's got a bolt. Thanks for your efforts here, Jason. Particularly the polling's been fantastic messaging. Okay, we're going to be back. John Fresh. We're going to go to Georgia, look at the retribution of those individuals stood up for the Constitution, this republic, and President Trump. What's happening down in Georgia next.